across Europe and as well as Asia. In terms of art practice or my career, I used to be a physicist, so I studied physics and also up until PhD in quantum physics and complex systems. So I basically, what I do now is span from science to art, and in my university now, I have a group with six students, PhD and master students. So what we do essentially is to combine art and science to create new forms of storytelling. That's why it's called future narratives. So basically, I leverage the methodology knowledge from science to use them as a medium for narratives to discuss about contemporary issues of the society. In this talk, I will focus on the artwork Echoes of the Land, which exhibited in 4 countries last year, and also Paris a year before. And in last year, so out of the 4 countries, 2 of them were in Europe. One is in Lev Festival in Gihon. I don't know if many of you actually been there. I would actually, just for fun and for some interaction, if you had been to Lev Festival, you can press an emoji at the bottom to let me know how many you have actually been there. Yeah. And so that was gave me a very nice experience. It was actually my first time in Spain. Actually, having spent 12 years in Europe, it was actually the first time in Spain. And working with Lev Festival gave me such wonderful impression about Spain and the people and the culture. So I'll talk more about that. First, just to give you an idea what this work is about and the kind of process that is involved.
So my name is Taiwan.
Through this video.
I'm an artist researcher. So my name is Ivan. I'm an artist researcher. We present our installation Echoes of the Land. I was born in Taiwan, an island where earthquakes are part of everyday life, part of our memories, and part of the experience of growing up. For me, and for many people living in Taiwan, earthquakes are woven into life itself. Like breathing, they are the breath of the land. Yet today, the terrain is not only moved by nature. Scientific evidence has shown that high-rise construction, drilling, fracking, dams, mining, and other forms of extraction can trigger seismic events. These are earthquakes born not only of tectonic forces, but also of machines. They are the echoes of the land, the roles of the terrain, placing both human and non-human lives at risk. Echoes of the Land is an interactive installation that combines kinetics, light, sound, and immersive visuals, allowing the viewer's senses to wander between the real and the virtual. This artwork uses the spring block model in seismology as a scientific basis to construct a mechanical device capable of simulating real earthquake movements. Through real-time motion detection technology and granular sound synthesis, minute movements can be converted into highly realistic earthquake sounds. By exerting external forces, viewers accumulate energy within the blocks until a critical threshold is reached, releasing kinetic energy and generating a series of sounds. Lighting generated by the blocks not only resembles forest fire or avalanches visually, that they share the very same underlying mechanisms. The immersive projections show the rapid shuffling of pairs of images with scenes of anthropogenic activities and potential destructions they may cause. By showing this work, I hope to raise the awareness of anthropogenic seismicity around the world.
Okay. Yeah, I hope you can hear the sound fine. So this work is about anthropogenic seismicity or human-induced earthquakes. That's more a colloquial way of speaking, including these activities as mentioned in the video. For Taiwanese, the closest examples is Taipei 101. So most of the earthquakes that happens in Taiwan are natural. It's just we're sitting on the tectonic plates. However, there's a recorded data showing before the construction of Taipei 101 and during the construction and after, you will see a rise in the magnitude and the frequency of the earthquake in Taipei. So for those who don't know about Taipei 101, it's one of the tallest buildings in the world that sits in the center of the Taipei city. And in 2018, this article cataloged near 1,000 earthquakes, human-induced earthquakes around the world, including Europe. So this work, we make a scientific model into something that can be exhibited and experienced by the viewers. So that's all about the work itself. Now I'd like to share something a little bit more about the process of participating in the Left Festival in Gihon. So it's an annual festival. I think maybe it just ended last week. I guess. It's around 20 years history. So the venue of the exhibition is in the 18th century church, about 300 years old. So the whole church has been converted into an exhibition space. So at that time, last year, they show only my work in the whole space. So it's actually a very nice experience. The whole space, since it's about the earth and it's about a large scale kind of sensory experience. It's nice to have this kind of space. It has a very spiritual feeling and ambience. And funny enough, I wonder if you remember what happened on this date last year, 28th of April. It is the day when the first day of our installation, I mean, the preparing for the exhibition, actually setting up, the first day of setting up. What happens is this, right? There was a huge major power outage. I'm sure later on there was like investigation in why that happened, but I think on the day nobody knows what happens. It's such a huge outage, and it was just right at the moment in the middle of setting up, and my immediate reaction was, okay, it's caused by us. You know, the building was shut down because maybe there's a short circuit, or maybe there's a power overload, overdrive, whatever. And so immediately I thought, okay, maybe let's turn out the power again, sorry about that, and so on. But then one of the technician, he was thinking, that's maybe not it. So he went out on the street, and he immediately discovered that even the traffic light, it's dead. So at that point, I kind of, well, I can't say relaxed, but at least I knew it wasn't our fault. No, it wasn't our because of our circuit or something like that. So and then what do we do? So this is the moment where we found out that the whole city was cut out, and there's nothing we can do because it's just we can't test anything. So what we did was we went for lunch, and took the rest of the day off, basically. So it was quite fun. I mean, it was like it's really I think a Spanish spirit, at least. In Taiwan, it won't happen like this. In Taiwan, it will be, you will hear a lot of people, criticizing, cursing, and also, on the news there will be politicians, saying, "Oh, this is your fault or his fault," blaming each other, But at that time, I feel like everyone just relaxed and just let it be. So it's a very different vibe, and I was quite intrigued by that. And these are the people behind the project. So the curator, Nachos, and Christina. These are the co-curators. Augusta, the working for the representative office, Taiwan, the cultural division, who supports the whole festival. And in the middle is the vice mayor of Gihong. So it's a very kind of supportive, and the vibe is just great. Not only is the team professional in terms of artistically and technically, but also the communication was very smooth. So I have very nice experience there exhibiting. And this is just to show the local news. And it was, to me, quite interesting to know the translation of my work, Echoes of the Land. Is this, I can't really pronounce, but I think it's quite cool. And also, it was I think the way, I think the best moment is also during the exhibition. I get to talk to a lot of strangers, the audience. So the work became like a bridge between nations, between cultures of different countries. So these two groups of people, they saw the information on the internet, and these two women, they are actually Taiwanese living in Spain, but they came to support and bring in their spouses to see the work. And so we were able to, just to chat about life in Spain and so on. And in the middle, they actually, they're from Linz. At least they studied in Linz, in Austria, where actually I went to exhibit in the summer last year and met them again. So they came to Gihong just to see this festival. So coming from Linz, they have also background in new media and so on. So we were able to also discuss more in depth about the installation. And one of them actually, she's from Kazakhstan, and she was also spent some time in Taiwan as well. So there's a lot of coincidence crossing the path and experience. So a lot of kids really they like to play with it, even they don't understand maybe the concept about human-induced earthquake, but nonetheless they found it interesting to interact with. And these couple on the upper right, they are very special because they actually danced in front of my artwork. I can show you. Okay, so a little bit background knowledge of this clip. So I was recording the audience reaction, just for my documentary, and then while I was videoing, this couple started to dance. I've never seen this kind of response to my installation. And my jaw just dropped. Sorry for the shakiness of this video, because I was videotaping something, else, but I saw they started to dance. I was too excited. I just started shaking. I was trying to, hold my camera. On the other hand, I had my mobile phone videotaping at the same time. I was just so stunned. And yeah, and then I went to talk to him, and was yeah, it's a very nice way to also to meet meet people. And funny enough, so for there are also other strangers who I talk to. Basically, I approach the audience when they spend a long time in front of the installation discussing about it and so on. So I will be very happy. I'll be intrigued to know what they think about the installation. So I went up to talk to them, and I offer to explain more in depth about this work. So what happens every time is that I explained like, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes. They start to wonder like, oh, why do I know so much about this artwork? I immediately assumed that they would know I was the artist, but they didn't seem to think that. Only until like they, we introduced each other, and I said, I'm Ivan, and then I point my name on the board. They were like surprised that I'm actually the artist. So to me, I'm like, yeah, sorry to say this, but I'm the only Asian here in this room, and the artist's name is Asian name. So, well, at least half of it. So I was quite surprised they didn't assume that I was just the artist. Okay, to wrap up a bit, yeah, so even though in Europe, most audience I think never felt an earthquake, but they actually relate to the theme due to maybe they heard about this issue, these human-induced earthquake, or at least because of there's a lot of mining, quarrying, and also high-rise building that happens everywhere around the world. Oil fracking, oil extraction, and so on. So they were very interested to know about this issue. Some actually told me that, for example, even in when I exhibited in Austria, in Linz, there was a German audience said because of a lot of lithium mining, parts of Europe actually become an earthquake region. Whereas earthquake didn't really exist before. So, and for this, for example, I think if you're not familiar with human-induced earthquake, a quick search in, for example, Google or Gemini even is the best. I just tried this like last weekend when I was preparing the slides. I asked the Gemini to summarize the human-induced earthquake in Spain. So actually, there are a lot of very significant cases caused by, for example, energy and gas storage, or reservoir, water dam construction, and mining. These all happen in Spain. So it's a global phenomenon. Even when I exhibited in Korea, they told me about Gangnam, the one region. That's where the song Gangnam Style comes from. The region is actually sinking because of the lots of construction, and that caused the terrain to be unstable. Yeah, and so obviously, most people, in fact, everyone I observed, they were interested by the sound and visuals. My observation is that in Spain, the audience were the keenest to interact with the installation with the least hesitation. So they were just, to me, maybe just they just found it fun to play with. So they were having fun. I think it's the vibe of having fun. That it's just a joy to see people enjoy it. And some people, even, they are keen to teach others how to interact with it. They are teaching the other, oh no, you should shake it like this, and you should do it like that. It's quite interesting. Okay, so that was my talk. And if you are like to know more about our other works, you can go on to our website. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivan, for the presentation. Very, very nice. Thank you. A lot of memories from my last visit on Taiwan, especially regarding the artwork. And I'm very happy to hear such a wonderful word about Spain as well. So yeah, I think we're gonna wait until the next presentation to open in the Q&A session. If anyone has any question, because I think it works out a little bit better if we mix the question together with the next presentation as well. So next presentation also is very related to the relationship between Spain and Taiwan, the collaboration between these two territories. And for that, we're going to talk about a project that took place last year in Spain, the Fiera Internacional de Grabado de Bilbao, the Bilbao Printmaking Festival, in which Taiwan has been invited as a guest of honor, and in which many artists participate from Chiayi University, including professors and students. So today we have Professor Ching-yu, which prepared this presentation alongside with Professor Chang, who studied in Spain for a long time as well. And with them also, I think, the students that participate in the event, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, I will give space to the professor to present their presentation, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Hello, Roberto, and dear professor and artists and scholars.
Buenos días, Roberto. Otro.
Hello. Okay, I'm Ching-yu from National Chiayi Universities, and it's a profound honor to represent our team at here and exploring that the parallel modernity of we are experienced in FIG. And my presentation today title will be that developing transcultural trajectories, the two-way feedback of Taiwanese and Spanish printmaking, education under parallel modernities. I use parallel modernities because it suggests that we no longer view the West as a sole centers, but really see Taiwan and Spain as a two independent yet mirror images, cultural trajectories. So let me show. So here is our group. the bridge between Taiwan and Spain. So before started, Professor Chang, I will introduce, because he is the key man that we have a chance to go to FIG billboards. And Professor Chang, he held a PhD in Fine Arts from the University Paloma de Valencia. And his practice is deeply rooted in the confluence of Eastern and Western visual texts. And he has long been committed to an artistic and academic exchange between Taiwan and Spain. My own research is focused on the contemporary printmaking and visual narrative, exploring the possibilities of art on paper by fusing traditional technique with digital and interactive medias. So for us, this engagement transcends a mere academic output. It is a journey of developing cultural trajectory between Taiwan and Spain. So let me start from here. So begin, we have to echo of our history, the homage to Liu Xiaoping. Use the theme of Focus Taiwan in the FIG in 2025, that the curator Diana Zhu, he construct an artistic spectrum that allow Taiwan's creative energy to manifest in the Basque regions. So we start paying our homage to Professor Liu Xiaoping, who brought Western technique to Taiwan and initiated the modernization of Taiwanese printmaking. Professor Liu's double happiness, you can see from the images, series demonstrates an early fusion of Eastern symbol and Western forms. The starting point of our parallel modernities. Our school acts as both educators and practitioners, leading students from the campus to an international art fairs. If Professor Liu's area was about introduction, our generation is about translation and output, sharing contemporary Taiwanese perspective back to Europe.
Excuse me,
So,
Professor.
yes.
That's one thing.
Yes.
I think we did the slide a little bit small. I don't know if you can open it full screen, because
Yes, okay. Let me
difficult
show.
to see properly what they.
Is that okay?
Let's see.
Let me. Is that full screen?
Okay. Yes, I think now it's
Yes.
better. I don't know if you can put the right side a little bit hidden in order to be bigger the slide.
Let me
Yes,
have a look.
I think this is
that okay?
better. I think so. Thank you.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Okay, so right now we talk about that the challenge of the modernity of printmaking educations. And because contemporary printmaking education face a very significant bottlenecks, we often ask ourselves that is the printmaking limit to the one-way display of the works, or we have reached a technological impasses by neglecting ecological considerations. Through our experience at FIG billboards, we thought to break the framework of one-way output and reconsidering how printmaking might transcend the definitions of traditional medias to become a dynamic field of developing transcultural connections. So we use developing as a philosophy core of this research. Physically, it is the process of images emerged from the photosensitive materials. Culturally, it is a process through which parallel modernities of our two nations aligned, then clearly through dialogue. This is more than an expression of object. It is the feedback of educational praxis, allow young artists from both lands to find an ally with resonance across that parallel historical time space through their visual vocabulary. So in the FIG, we have lots of workshop to open this dialogue. You can see that these images demonstrate each workshop how the creator to demonstrate their skill or their idea of the art on papers. And for the young artist, there's a project called the Cube of Temptations. It contains about 6 to 8 cubes. Each cube have one young artist. And so our school, we have 4 students. And today we have 3 students here to demonstrate that it's not just a one-way display. It also can be open a dialogue with the student and the audience. So I think that is a practice to start a dialogue instead just one-way expressions demonstrate. So we can have a look here that our student, that Ting Ling, her work demonstrate a new generation sensitivity to the materials, exchanging creative philosophies with international peers. And Zhi Liu's work drew an audience attention to Taiwanese narrative, especially her work is about the landscape of Taiwan. So that embodied the potential of a young artist as a cultural prescriptors.
I'm afraid it's not moving the slide. It got stuck. Now we can see again. We missed the latest slide about the presentation.
So how about I use like this? Is
Okay,
that okay?
Now it's
okay.
Yeah. Now it's
okay. So this is the previous slide. And then later I will talk about the Spanish student. This is a Spanish student's the work of the Temptation of Cube. It's more about the visual narrative and also attention about the speciality. So it's tend to that the sonic about more storytelling that represents the similar provoked and a profound creative impact and renaissance for the Taiwanese students. So throughout these 3 intense days, the students from both nations involved from being strangers to connect on social medias, and from there presenting their portfolio only and to exchange their artistic philosophies. This journey marks a return at the primal essential of art education, the realization of the parallel cultural resonance between our 2 nations. So now I will leave the room for the 2 students directly share their experience to you.
Hello, everyone. It's a great honor to be here. Today, we'd like to share our journey to Bǎodǎo. For us, the cube was much more than just a box. It was a physical dialogue between Taiwanese culture and Spanish artist energy. We want to show you how each of us faced this unique space and the sparks that blew during our exchange. First, let's hear from Ting about her sensory approach.
Hi,
I'm Ching-yu, and I see the cube as a giant bag of potato chips with the artwork light up whenever people pass by, and almost it like it is alive. It reflects how printmaking can be reproduced but still carry emotion in each piece. I also really liked the works created by students from another school. They use lighting and sound effects to create a strong and dramatic atmosphere in the space.
Now, on behalf of Chen, for her, the cube was a fresh architectural challenge. In her previous experience, art was mostly flat. However, in Bilbao, she broke the limits of the frame. She focused on the relationship between the image and 3D space by decomposing and reconstructing her prints. She made the space inside the cube a part of the art itself. Seeing how other participants interacted with the cubes, geometry expanded her understanding. She realized that printmaking can be a structure, not just a surface. For my own part, the biggest spark happened during setup. I noticed that our cultural understanding of space was very different. I brought several separate prints and displayed them in a salon-style way. To me, the cube was a vessel, a container to protect the scenery I brought from Taiwan. I wanted to show the audience the delicate textures and stories of my home. But the Bilbao students showed me how to truly think outside the box. To them, the cube was the art. This parallel output was fascinating. We brought our landscapes to Spain, and in return, we learned a new way of spatial narrative. We also had some funny cultural shocks, especially the dining habit. In Taiwan, we usually eat dinner at 5 p.m., but in Spain, we couldn't find dinner until 9 p.m. To our surprise, we realized that 9 p.m. is actually considered an early dinner in the local culture. During the exhibition, many viewers told me they felt a sense of seniority in my work. They found a deep connection between Bilbao and Taiwan. Both are humid, running, and closely connected to the sea. This feedback made me realize that our scenery isn't just an image on paper, but shared language of living by the ocean. This experience changed me. My work is no longer limited to paper. I've started to explore how to tell stories using all five senses. To conclude, this exchange was a beautiful collision of perspectives. We brought Taiwanese landscape to Bilbao, and we brought back a new understanding of space and sound. When two different cultures meet within the same boundaries, creativity becomes infinite. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for the student sharing. So about that previous mentioned, there's many workshops during the 2025 FIG, and we brought new technologies of printmaking to that the FIG. So we demonstrate a new material called photopolymer, but it's purely made by Taiwan. It's on non-toxic, water-based, plate. So it can demonstrate very elegant details. So in the fig, we demonstrate how to make the plate and use non-toxic only water to make the plate, and how did it print. So it raised a lot of audience to making a dialogue with us, how to use these more sustainability materials in the futures. So we also demonstrate that the Chinkore technique, actually that technique is adapted from the French, and we use this to collaborate this new photopolymer plate to demonstrate how can well they combine together and create more Chinese styles like water-based scene and printmaking works. So we are very lucky for the 2025. We have the chance to collaborate in this year with the Foundation the Cionic, based on the Bozenos in Spain. So we will continue to discuss about the printmaking technique from Taiwan, and also combine with the technique in Spain in this year, 2026, in this October's. So this discourse between Taiwan and Spain in the field of printmaking has crystallized into a parallel modernities, characterized by acute self-awareness. Through bilateral education in ecologically sustainable collaborations, our two nations are jointly reconfiguring to the transcultural context of contemporary art on paper. Thank you all. So I will raise some questions in the futures. So that in the past international art exchange, we often fell into the pattern of unidirectional design mechanisms, so that future transnational exhibitions are no longer just about being viewed, but can generate profound dialogue with the true two-way impact. And the second question will be, we have found that eco-friendly technologies such as non-toxic printmaking have become a shared dialogue for creators in Taiwan and Spain. As sustainability is increasing become a prerequisite for temporary art, how do you think its shifts in technique and material will change our future visual aesthetics or pedagogy? Thank you.
Thank you very much to everyone presenting right now, because many people to thanks in this latest presentation. I'm very happy that everyone could join. I'm very also happy that you accepted the invitation. For me, it was special also because I had the chance during my last stay in Taiwan to briefly talk about transcultural connection between Spain and Taiwan, mentioning exactly what happened in Bilbao last year. So I'm very happy that we had the chance also to repeat here in Spain and to share here in Spain what you've done last year. So I think something in common between the two presentations is especially the idea of participation, to include the audience. We can see that in the installation proposed by Professor Liu was very immersive. People were dancing around it, touching it, kids, adults, family. So it was creating interest by creating interaction. And I feel that same happened as well in Bilbao last year. No, you mentioned the many workshops you organized. I know the exhibition was very also immersive, no, with guided tour, and people were asking around, no, what was happening in the exhibition. So I think both projects highlights the importance of participation in contemporary art, and especially in these transcultural dialogues. And another thing that really interested me is how both of you highlight the cultural differences that you can find in Spain between Taiwan. Professor Liu talk about the reaction of Spanish people after the outage, no? That a little bit surprisingly, everyone went out to just have a drink and eat and go into the park. So I remember then that day, the central government want to deploy the army in the street because they were worried about chaos maybe at night, but people were just hanging out in the park and having a great time without their phone. And same the students talking about that in Spain, people actually maybe have late lunch at 5 p.m. and not early dinner. So big, sometimes cultural differences, but I feel also that we share something in common, especially related with the art, no? So yeah, I think now we can start a little bit to receive questions if people have it for the next 20-30 minutes before starting with the next panel. Something that I would like to ask you in the meantime, if it's, for example, how important is then participation for you in your artistic practice, but also curatorial practice, maybe in the case of Bilbao. That means how important is for you the audience and public actively participate in the artwork in the exhibition, in order also to build better this narrative behind the artwork of the exhibition itself.
Thank you, Robert. I think it's a very good question. Well, from my personal perspective, that this is have a chance that we start to narrative of our Taiwanese printmaking history from different generations this time, and it's very generous, I have to say it, because that in the present before we don't have a chance that to demonstrate the different generation and to look at more longer how the artistic style change and into the new generation. And because we have that chance, we have a chance to make the audience to give me more feedback. And we can see the student also in the present can see the others' artworks. So they start to from the work and to start to make a dialogue. And it's very important that the artist can make a dialogue with others. You can see you are not isolated work to do. And they have after they come back, they have a more inspiration to connect their artwork to the Spanish, the young artists, that they want to make more narrative as presentation. Before they are more just a free friend that our work, and right now they're more narrative. They must be influenced from theirs. Yes, so it's my little observation.
I do agree. Maybe Professor Liu also want to add something. I don't know if you have any thought on this question as well.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. And then I was a little bit interested to know how important is participation in your artwork, on your curatorial practice, or in general for Future Narratives Lab, and what you work on. How important is for you that the public participate, the audience has this immersive feature, no, in order to better understand as well the narratives you propose in your artwork.
Yeah, I think it's indeed very central to our creative process is to leave freedom and openness for the audience to interpret and to interact. Indeed, at the beginning of my artistic career, I used to start with my own story and the things I want to tell. But gradually, I discovered that the audience, coming from all kind of demographic backgrounds and culture, they have their own interpretation and their own way of interaction with the artwork. So I started to gradually discover when they share their story with me, I I learned a lot of things which I've never thought of before. So then I started to think, if I were to write a complete narrative without any space or opportunity for the audience to participate or fill the gap, it would be just very kind of authoritarian, or very sort of dictative. So I started to find a balance between my narrative, which is more like giving a context, telling just the context, but without telling you this is good or this is bad. It's more about you experiencing it, whether some people like it. I think some people, especially when I give talks, people will think like, oh, this must be a horrifying work with all the trembling, noise and so on. But in fact, what happens in the exhibition is that everyone loved playing with it. They were smiling, they were, gasping, and they were, you see the excitement on their faces. So. And the story they share with me is very multi-faceted. So it's I think audience participation and interpretation is indeed a very large part that makes up this artwork whole. If I were to give a reference to indeterminism, pioneered by, for example, John Cage and other early contemporary artists. So I think, yeah, that's what I like to say about it.
Thank you very much for the answer. Very interesting. Maybe we can now reply to the question. I don't know if anyone has a question. Please. I'm gonna, please.
Hello, thank you so much for both of your presentations. Very enjoyable to learn about both projects. I have a question for both, and that's kind of around like, what do you think the perception of Taiwan has been in Spain from what you've seen and your experiences here? And do you think that there's been more interest from the Spanish public to learn about Taiwan as a result?
Okay, maybe I go first. So I think I grew up partly also in Europe. It was in late 90s. It was a time when people would get confused between Thailand and Taiwan. Sometimes we were writing postcards or letters. It would be sent to Thailand and then go all the way around, and then to Taiwan. It would take like a month or so. To now, obviously, people understand or heard about Taiwan through, at the beginning, it was the tension between China and Taiwan. And recently, it's just the chips, TSMC chips because of AI. Yeah. Apart from that, I think, aside from the headline news, people generally don't know, they don't have much chance to expose to Taiwanese culture, Taiwanese people. So I think, in a way, these art events creates another opportunity for people to learn about Taiwanese culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think I totally agree with Professor Liu. Yeah. Before, everybody used to confuse Taiwan and Thailand, and from our experience in billboards, it is very interesting because that people in audience in FIG, they are very interesting about Taiwan's paper, especially very thick paper, Chinese paper. And they sometimes were confused about the Japanese paper and Taiwanese papers. But that the outcome of the Chinese paper, it can create a very like a Chinese calligraphy or watercolor atmosphere of that visual expressions. So I think that this time we have a very interesting dialogue between the audience and us, and they thought that the style, visual style, is very Chinese, Chinese calligraphies, but actually that the techniques is all made by in Taiwan, and that the way we transfer into like the printmaking also combined with the Western printmaking technique, that it creates very similarity to Chinese style, but we have our own technique process. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I can say that still in Spain, sometimes people confuse Taiwan with Thailand, I feel. Happened to me as well, especially in the university sometimes, but I think people are understanding little by little more about Taiwan and also the particularities surrounding Taiwan. And following maybe Professor Chang's latest reflection, we can also introduce the question in the chat box that says if she has ever found any similarities between Spanish and Taiwanese printmaking art or techniques. And I think it's very interesting because actually I know that there's been connection, maybe not only with printmaking art, but also abstract art, especially in the 60s, 70s, during the time Taiwan was still like the Taiwan and Spain connection were very strong because of the two regimes. So I think there's a lot in common maybe, but maybe Professor Chang can tell us more about that.
Oh, yeah, thank you for the questions. I found that the two nations, we are very keen right now to focus on the material itself. Before that, our printmaking, especially like intelligios, we use the carbon and to use the assets to make the printmaking, and it's very toxic sometimes. Recently, these two nations, we are more focused on untoxic way to make a printmaking. For example, we can use Coca-Cola to replace that asset, or use the photopolymer water base to decrease use these very chemical materials to make printmakings. So the trend of way of use sustainability the material, I think, is a very similarity between Taiwan's and Spain's.
Okay, thank you. We have 5 minutes more. If you'd like to reply to the last question, we have a very short answer by Anna, who asked if what other place have you considered to take your exhibition? In the case of Ivan, how do you choose your space? And if there are any special conditions to be met, like spiritually and ambience, as you mentioned.
I think as to what other places I consider, in fact, if anyone like to exhibit, I would just open, usually, consider the opportunity to exhibit. So there's no particular city or country, though I'm quite curious. I haven't got any invitation from the America continent yet, so I don't know, my work tend to resonate more with the European audience. I think it's just a kind of maybe the taste or I don't know, but so maybe I think maybe America or Canada, because there are a lot of these human activities, constructions going on, so I would like to I wonder what their reception is. And also so in terms of the conditions of the space, I think I'm very open to all kinds of conditions. If I were to specify a condition, and that would be dissonance. So I like spaces where things feeling a little bit conflict or tension, not something a typical gallery or museum space. I like particularly industrial or like church is, I think I even dream of, like literally dreaming of this kind of spiritual place, to have a very, conflict and uncanny contrast between the work and the space. So dissonance is probably the kind of ambience I look for.
Yeah, I think the displaying in Lab Festival in Gijón was very good. It was actually very, very good for that kind of art installation. So if we don't have anything else to add, maybe we can say thanks again to both Professor Liu and Chang for their presentation. Very, very interesting. I'm very, very happy that you can join us today. And we can move forward to the next panel. Mountains, Plain and Isle, New Non-Periphery in Contemporary Taiwan, which will start with Lucky Chen, that is connected with us today. Lucky is a dear friend of mine from Taiwan, but behind that is also freelance strategist and currently is strategy director for Le Petit Show's production, Sea Belongings, and Ground Zero Studio. Also, since 2023, collaborated with Ars Electronica and European Union, serving as jury member for the Digital Humanity category and the Critics of Ars Electronica, in which you recently been, if I'm not wrong. And today is gonna illustrate us a little bit more about his latest work during these past few years, and especially the intersection existing between digital art and memory, and in this case also food. So I'm very interested to know more about your presentation, Lucky. The stage is for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. Can you hear me? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's my honor to join the symposium, and thank you for inviting me, Roberto. So my name is Yun-Cheng, or most of my friends know me as Lucky. So let me share my screen first. Is it working now? Cool, thanks. So just like Roberto mentioned, I've become the strategic director of Ground Zero Studio this year. So at Ground Zero, I can put it into the screen, yes. So at Ground Zero, we translate this term, the marginalized landscape, so which represent we view our work as a specific form of artistic practice. And it is how we seek to understand Taiwan, actually. And our approach is built on two core methodologies: artistic participation and also social sculpture. So this topic I'm talking about, I'm sure you have already seen the main thing is about digital humanity as a strategy for intertwining spiritual heritage and digital culture. So I guess because this digital humanity, this term might be new to some of you. So before we dive deeper, I would like to establish a foundation. So to understand the nature of digital humanity, we can distinguish between the two concepts, like the physicality and digitality. Of course, we are already familiar with this, like intimately familiar with this humanity because it is rooted in our physical selves, and our analog societies are built upon this. And we have these embodied experiences, and it is constructed actually by neural patterns. So it will spark our human empathy. So we will feel like when we are living with our physical body and living this physical environment, and we feel sometimes vulnerable. But this vulnerability become our shared capacity for like pain and sorrow and understanding, and allow us to shape a truly resilient communities. So for me, I really like I sometimes I really miss when times that we don't have a lot of technological tools and products. But actually, the digitality doesn't have neurons instead, right? So they are built on this binary encoded data. The data has no feeling and it has no memory. So when we are immersed in the purely digital environment, we lose that bridge of empathy. So we stop connecting somehow. We cannot connect in a very deep understanding with our embodied experiences. So most of the time, we simply project ourselves onto the others when we are in the digital environment, like so seeing data, watching the video, playing games, and so on. So now to be clear, I'm not saying digitality is the enemy, even though there are some pros and cons, and you can figure out like from both there are some pros and cons, and we all enjoy the convenience it brings. But this digital transcends the limits of the analog. It offers like scalability with marginal utility. Like we all feel a lot of people using AI now, and you never feel tired. I mean, the technical product. So it's machine, right? So you never suffer. And with that feels like infinite computing power, the digital world, we can leverage it we can leverage it endlessly. So as a result, we have begun to worship these benefits because it's very convenient and safe and interesting. So, and you will be not tired. We can just manipulate that. So in places like Silicon Valley, there's a deep, almost religious belief in techno solutionism, the idea that technology alone can be engineered, and it can be engineered for a better future of the world. And this is ironically somehow right, like some people, like the world is accelerating with technology, and we are supposing to have a better world, but we are seeing today an increasing amount of misinformation, disinformation, fraud, addiction, and polarization. So this is exactly why we need to change the conversation now. In contrast to techno-solutionism, we must reframe the term digital humanity. And we need to stop focusing on technologies that just boost efficiency or harvest our attention. I mean, like how technology how they care the society, how they can take care of the human, the planet. So instead, we must place our focus where it belongs, on diversity, vulnerability, care, and relationality. So how might we recover humanity in cyberspace through human-machine collaboration? I think it's one of the focus that we are all, a lot of people like activists and humanists and artists, we need to reframe this digital humanity, because somehow we are losing a lot of our important trait about the cultural heritage. So we are moving toward the pro-social behavior, like community notes. If some of you use X or Twitter, you might notice there's a pro-social function. It's called community notes. And it's important to amplify the diversity as well. So this kind of more and more focus and the awareness raised by the digital humanity, we might be able to build a more equitable technological society. And then we received an invitation from the National Museum of Taiwan History. For a long time, this museum, it has been a vital institution, a place for the world to understand Taiwan and for Taiwan to rediscover itself. So it has a very interesting visionary goal, that is to, it's as you can say, they held a lot of exhibitions. So they want to use NFTs as a tool to digitally preserve the culinary memories of the public. And we accepted that challenge. We found that very fascinating and interesting. But the point is, it's a procurement, the bidding project. So, so we need to participate in the open procurement process. But luckily, our proposal was selected, and our team, then we spent like almost a year planning and executing what became a foundational initiative for the Vernacular Foodways digital preservation, which is the main goal of this project. So as you can see, in 2024, right? So the NFT market was in a deep bear cycle, and a lot of trust has evaporated, mostly due to excessive speculation. And if you look closer, like the animation like showing right now, there was a deeper issue. Most NFT at the time look very cool, innovative, they can move, and they're generative, but they are lacking the sense of humanity. Also, because this project were primarily driven by individual artists, the individual personal endeavors instead of human co-creation. Sorry. So the result is profound sense of alienation that when I was in 2024, I felt a kind of alienated. Also, so I can understand like why the general public feel like, oh, they are being skeptical about this art form of digitalizing the artwork. Therefore, so looking at all the gaps we have just discussed and mentioned, I decided to adopt this digital humanity as more than just a concept. It's a framework we use to intertwine spiritual heritage inside our body. So we always say like the body is our technology. And now we are moving toward the digital culture. So how do we intertwine both? So to build this framework, I've launched a series of analytical study to map out exactly how we can bridge these two worlds. So let's talk about how we actually do this project. This is the ground zero methodology, and this beautiful illustration is done by our artistic director, Ofi. And you can find a full breakdown on our website anyway. But at its heart, our team developed this framework to help ourselves or others to ask the right question. What is the right question? It's very important, right? So we look for the cracks here. Actually, this picture is inspired by a stray cat living nearby our studio. Anyway, this is cracks, and there are niche area of social concern that often overlooked, like here, the shadows. But we are not seeing the crack, only the bad thing, but we also see there's opportunities, like the entry point where we can probe the manifestation of shadow and find the entry point of the light. There will always a light, then there will be the darkness. So identify what is the right crack we are diving deeper is very important. And by navigating this tension between light and shadow, we are able to move beyond theory and establish a concrete action strategy. Okay. So at first, we began our research, and one thing just stood out. We found that we are living in a world where food is globalized to the point of losing its soul. And because of this, we found that the culinary memory of ordinary people, the public, the culture that connect to our history, have undergone a radical silent transformation because of the industrialization. So like this picture, it's 20 years ago. I pretty believe this is a typical Taiwanese household look like. People get around the table and we cook and we eat, we prepare for each other. And this photo, in fact, it's my dining room and with my grandpa, with grandma and my dad. But if you visit Taiwan today, the landscape has completely shifted. Convenience stores are everywhere, and Taipei now has the highest density of convenience store in the world. And Taiwan as a whole ranked second globally as well. Like I think the first one is South Korea as a country. Yeah. So these stores are not just shops; they have become our dining rooms. And this globalized, mechanized establishment have subtly rewritten our daily life. For the modern consumer, eating is no longer a ritual of memory or connection. We don't feel connected in this modernized setting. And it has become an experience, displays experiences centered on functionality, efficiency, and whatever media recommendations tell us to eat. And sometimes they have some credit, some discount, and you go for it. So a lot of local market and local restaurant they have been shrinking, and yeah, I'm pretty sure some of you may understand this issue. So furthermore, we dip deeper into the roots of this shift. The food culture we see today actually traced back to the second industrial revolution, and that caused the globalization, and a lot of things happened afterward. And now that shift give modern Taiwan something very important. Yes, the light from the good side, we see some quick, we have some quick and affordable food. Yes, but it also comes with a heavy price, the fading of our traditional food and cultures. At Ground Zero, our curatorial strategy is always grounded in one word: care. And it's not just a professional interest for us, it's personal. We need to feel connected somehow as a human being. And we are experiencing the vanishing of our own family tradition in real time, just like the photo I showed you. And that is why we committed to the strategic design, focus on the resilient part here, the red word here. So we want to empower the exchange and the inheritance of our food culture, because we don't share the setting that we can just like 20 years before, we can share the food and we cook the food. And this culture is very real and authentic, instead of not just going out and buy some very convenient food from function. So seeing Taiwan's food culture being reshaped at an incredibly speed these years, like pushed by the globalization, technology, and capital, we decided to set our goal permanently. We need to set our goal to permanently preserve our diverse family memories, the food memory, and our contemporary imaginaries. Oh, sorry, it should be called imaginaries of food by using the Web3 infrastructure and NFT. For some of you might not be familiar with NFT, I will just explain that very quick. It's actually, NFT is more like the vessel for storing the cultural memory. So first, NFT are decentralized, right? So when you store a photo, when you, for example, if you compare that you store a photo on Google Drive or Instagram, a single authority, they own your data. And they can just erase your data, and they can do whatever they want. They can store your data for good and use that. But an NFT is recorded on blockchain. This make it very unique, just like our own memories. It cannot be copied, deleted, or replaced by any single authority. And it ensures the digital dignity of our memory, which for me is very important. And secondly, it's we know that blockchain is open, transparent, and it's also tamper-proof. Because the ledger, the decentralized ledger on the blockchain is transparent and distributed. So again, no single authority can remove the history we have minted on chain. And for me, it's a form of digital resilience also. So finally, here the programmable is very important, because every action, every like minting, transaction, and transacting, and it all require a digital signature with your wallet. I don't want to make it more complicated, but you need to sign the signature so it can proceed. And it comes with price like gas fee, or you will like you are using the Google Drive, you don't anticipate you anticipate that they will give you like free storage, but it's very important to like you pay and you get something. It's very important for us, for every citizen, to give and take. So it will ultimately allow us to build an autonomous ecosystem that lives and grows on its own and on our own. So NFT, I think it's a very interesting medium and a capable one for to documenting, storing our full memory. And some people might think minting NFT is very complicated, but in fact, the logic is almost identical to creating a Gmail account or uploading file to Google Drive. Both platforms allow users to top up their account for commercial purpose too. So the real challenge is new, and it's about like how and why. It's about the mindset. As a society, we are not ready to shift an autonomous internet. I mean, for most of us, and we are held back by the friction, such as the stigmas surrounding NFT and the deep habitual reliance on free information services. But in an autonomous society, we have to rethink how we value our data and how we give our data for public goods, and what's the personal data we want to keep instead of preventing that from the AI or from some exploitation. So this is a formula. How we use digital humanity to intertwine spiritual heritage with digital culture. To make this practical, our team broke the process down into 3 steps: creating the digital art, minting, and transacting. So first, we incorporate embodied experiences through the conscious hypnosis, like meditation, but more deeply, as well as using human AI collaborative dialogue. So it's not just you command, but you need to have this inquiry, keep inquiry and asking, conversing process. And in the digital art creation process, it's a procedure that we designed. And then in the minting and transaction phases, we integrate pro-social and pro-social design principles for more people to engage. So it's not like they just buy it and they just sell it. You need to participate. That is the point. So by doing this, our team developed what we call the new culture technique in cyberspace. The speculative approach designed to permanently preserve our diverse culinary memories bottom up and the contemporary imaginaries of our food culture. So in practice, because they are multi-layers, like a series of recruitment events, because it's socially engaged process, and we held like 5 on-site workshops and 1 online community NFT auction event. Given the time limit, I can't dive into every detail, but let's take a look at this video. It will provide a quick overview of how the entire project came to life. If there is no sound, please tell me. Thank you.
我们2年前升格为3级感测之后，我们新设立一个数位创新中心。那我们希望不只是资讯的服务，我们能够提升到一个数位的这样一个阶段。那更重要是把创新这个概念带到各管制。业务方面，当然在2021年6月，就是从文化部承接了我们将文化记忆库2.0的这个重要的工作。在国文库的这个大的工作项目之下，我们不同的分支计划。那我们在国文库其实有一个饮食记忆的专区。那收藏各种不同的类型的饮食的生活方面的一些题材，所以饮食这个主题是我们这几年比较关注的，那也受到很多的回响跟好评。不管是像去年的这个岛屿库克系列影片的拍摄，或是今年的 NFT 的这个工作坊，都是这个很重要的一个工作。
在汤料里。
那我想象的是做酸辣汤，
红萝卜加番茄的时候，我才会吃红萝卜。
那我是在渔村长大，
很简单，就是我妈妈会做的菜。
后来我们选择从文化技术的角度来思考这些很新的科技。这次工作坊而言，这个新的科技就是 NFT， 也就是区块链上面的加密代币。像饮食啊，就每天的吃啊喝啊，固然是我们能够活下来的关键。那种种摄取能量有关的身体运动，它都蕴藏就是几百万年来人类的饮食，然后它不断让我们能够演化。这些演化之下，基因其实有蕴藏着很丰富的人体智慧。延伸之后，我们就设计出4场结合推测设计的催眠身体工作坊。每场工作坊结束之前，我们都邀请参与者们写下一份为自己纪念或与他人分享的记忆食谱。之后就是透过与设计团队设计出符合跨越时空的概念的立体模型 GLB 档，以及与图像生成式 AI 的合作，制作出 NFT 的档案成果。在4场实体工作坊结束之后，我们办理了一场线上的工作坊，这有点像是一个很温馨的集体的围炉，大家在线上，那创作者们就分享他，比如他住在什么地方，他为什么要设计出这样的一个记忆食谱，那对他的意义是什么？过去在实体的世界里面，有一个人购买了收藏品，我们可能不知道他挂在家里面，因为他没有办法回溯嘛。但因为这个钱包地址比如说是我的，那我有很多的收藏品，就会让别人都可以看得到，他也可以看得出来，对于我的品味，对我的收藏的兴趣，饮食记忆的传播上面，就不会只是比如说我们家族的记忆自己收藏起来，而是每个人都可以彼此分享彼此对于饮食记忆的饮食文化的想法。也可以产生讨论，所以它在传播的部分、保存的方面，既是安全，然后也是去中心化，但又是开放的。这是我觉得 NFT 作为饮食记忆的保存方式的一种很有趣的媒介。
博物馆当然有各种不同的类型的博物馆，那我们是一个历史的博物馆，那更重要的是我们保存的是大众的，以长民记忆跟社会生活为主的，透过数位的媒介，进一步来把这些记忆的素材能够加以深化活化，希望能够成为一个代表台湾的国际级的一个博物馆。那我们是用世界台史博作为一个愿景，特别是经过COVID-19 这个疫情，就是说数位的、远距的、虚实并进的这样一种新的博物馆展示的形态，数位媒介、数位创新各种新的工具的应用，是一个很重要而且必须要去迎接的一个新的趋势。
Lucky. I think you're still mute from the video.
Thank you. I was saying that I think the time is not enough, so I will just skip this part. Just some process like recruitment on the social media, and there's a narrative about I deliver a lecture performance. It's about our gene and how it connects to our food memory today. It's like a speculative future and vision of it. And the process of the hypnosis. And collectively, we write the prompt for the AIs. Well, there are 2 different AIs, and also of course, it's a process doing a lot of design and a lot of iteration. Finally, we created the animated artwork and mint that on the blockchain. And the whole project you can see on the ArcaSwap here also. So if anyone interested in dive deeper, you can take a look. And I think there's some. We also have this culinary legends recipe collection NFT. So if anyone participating in our online community auction, NFT auction event, they can also select which food memory is the most valued. I don't want to say value, but if there are a lot of people select this one, they want to collect this NFT, we would talk to the museum that we want to have something very interesting for the creators as a memory. But you can just click into that and see the full detail of the NFT project. And the metadata here also. And also, of course, there'll be the swap and the transaction records. Okay, let's go back to the slides. So I'm going to just share some of the understanding after the project. So once the project concluded, we conducted a comprehensive analysis of the data and feedback, and that is one of the advantages that you are doing procurement, because you need to do a report. We have distilled it down to 3 key findings here. And first, I think feasibility in this project, in this strategy, is very important, because like all NFT were successfully being designed and minted in our workshops. And so this improved that the entire collaborative process can be fully feasible and actionable. And secondly, aesthetic is appreciated by the participants that mint and create the NFT. So following our online community event, we airdrop a total of 308 NFTs. On average, each participant choose to collect 7 different pieces. What we discover is that most participants value the aesthetic and cultural meaning of the digital artworks far more than their speculative value, like the gas fee and the value can be resale to others. And lastly, this 15% here is I think it's represent the spontaneous community behavior, and the natural circulation rate of NFT the next day actually is just 12 hours. We saw a 15% natural circulation rate. People are transacting the NFT after our event. So without any organized event or prompts from us, the community began gifting and trading the NFT on their own. This kind of pro-social behavior is very vital for the autonomous ecosystem we aim to build for fair internet, for fair art ecosystem. And beyond the technical data, we look at the human experiences also, and the feedback was overwhelming. In terms of overall satisfaction with the NFT minting and trading experiences, our participants rated both the event, like the content certification, and the mental professionalism above 90%. Here's the figure that truly mattered to us here, the 90%, also the 80% here, because more than 80% of participants didn't just enjoy the event, they actually could sense make themselves, like why they understand the rationale behind preserving food culture using NFTs. They understand why we did that. And it's very important for us. And it's also the core reason we undertook this project. And this is the visualization of the feedback into the work cloud. So we also want to understand why what truly drive people to continue their participation. And we identify 3 key motivation: knowledge and learning, embodied experiences, and emotional connection. It's truly intriguing for me that so many people express a deep desire to integrate the embodied experiences, not just the mouse clicks, but they want these embodied experiences and engagement into the digitalization of the food memory. For me, this is a very interesting findings. So a few months later, the project was fortunate enough to be nominated and recognized by the Lightwater NFT Art Award. Lightwater is one of the Taiwan's most influential platform for NFT arts. To wrap up here, I draw a diagram. Traditionally, if you see the left side, the system ruled by men have continued to generate a binary opposition between centralization and marginalization, which cause peripheries. And while most digital tools remain extractive rather than like regenerative or open source, and those extractive technological products reinforce the imbalance of the centralized power. So in our project on the right side, we used digital humanity as a strategic framework to supplement the traditional system. The cost of minting and transacting NFT is covered by the museum, the public sectors, and because I think it's a very good position for them to encourage the open data in the Web3 or in the general internet society. And the participant, yes, they like and trust the new ecosystem. And in a technical sense, it's a more fair ecosystem. So this fosters the transversal emergence in cyberspace, exploring the practical possibilities of the new non-peripheries. Compared to the traditional like a nation state, the blockchain follow the code is law, this protocol. So it provides greater efficiency and flexibility than the legislative processes like the traditional democratic nations. So people can call if we found some problem in the code that might be extractive to some others, we can just using the consensus, reach the consensus, and just change the code. So it's very important having this mechanism. And for me, the value of this framework lies in shedding a light on the future of humanity. That concludes my presentation today. So this is the experimentation. Ground Zero Studio is thriving and also experimenting right now. So that's all. Thank you all, and looking forward to more discussion.
Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. And well, you know that my research also shares a lot of similarities with all of this. So for me, it's always so refreshing and so interesting to hear more about these kind of projects. And I'm very happy that you had the chance to share with us today. I invite you to stay connected also for the latest, for the next presentation, as we're going to start with the Q&A session after the presentation of Anna, Tsuman, and Heidi. So maybe we can go forward to the next presentation with Ana Paloma Martínez Gómez. She's a Spanish researcher now based in Sweden. Very happy that she can join us today. For those who might not know, we're not so many based in Spain or from Spain studying Taiwanese art, and especially even less studying indigenous art or indigenous culture from Taiwan in Spain. So it's very refreshing to have a researcher like Anna presenting her paper that will focus about indigenous cinema in Taiwan. Anna holds a degree in pedagogy in Complutense University of Madrid and a MA in cultural management from the Universidad Oberta de Catalunya, Universidad de Gerona. And now she's based in Sweden, where she's collaborating also in the Asiatica Film Festival. And well, we're looking forward to hear more about your presentation today. Thank you very much, Anna.
Hi, thank you very much, Roberto, for inviting me to the seminar. I'm very happy to be part of it. And well, let me share my screen first. Okay. Okay, can you see it? You are muted.
Yes, I can see, but I cannot see the presentation actually. It says picture in picture is open because your screen sharing. Using picture in picture.
Okay, I'm gonna try again. So this one.
Okay.
Right.
Now
Can you
it's
see me?
yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, so I'm going to present my research on Lajamibo's cinema and the rise of indigenous identity in post-martial law in Taiwan. This presentation is based on my master thesis in cultural studies, which I completed in 2023, and I focused on the representation of Taiwan's indigenous peoples and their cultural identity through contemporary cinema. Just for a bit of context for my motivations, when I visited Taiwan 10 years ago, more or less, and I learned about indigenous groups in Taiwan, I was struck by the fact that very little was known about them at all in Europe, considering the fact that the Spanish and the Dutch settled in Taiwan in the 1600s, but here we never heard of that. So I've always been interested in films as a way to learning about different cultures. And while I was working at the Taiwan Film Festival in Edinburgh, I came across interesting indigenous films that made me want to explore more about this topic. I was working as a coordinator there, and as people in the audience, including Taiwanese people, didn't know much about indigenous cultures, neither indigenous cinema in Taiwan. Right. So for the historical context, anthropological evidence peoples more than 6,000 years ago, but yet today they represent only about 2.5% of Taiwan's population, and their cultural heritage is at risk of disappearing because their knowledge has been passed down through oral storytelling. Much of what we know about them has been shaped by Western perspectives. In film, they have been usually portrayed from a colonizer's view until quite recently. Therefore, this study explored how their portrayal has changed throughout Taiwan's colonial history, focusing on contemporary cinema when indigenous filmmakers began to write and produce indigenous films to tell their own stories. And this led to my research questions. So what is the representation in contemporary Taiwanese cinema, and how is their cultural identity portrayed? Has their representation changed, both domestically and internationally, since 2010, when they first began to appear as narrators of their own stories? And how is this change of narrative in contemporary Taiwanese cinema perceived in relation to their cultural identity, but the different ethnic groups in Taiwan? For the political context, I look at indigenous movements which emerged between 1980 and 1990s at an international level, helping to progressively wave a network of international cooperation between countries with indigenous population. In the case of Taiwan, as democracy arrived at the end of 1980s, when in 1997 martial law is lifted, so it marked a pivotal moment, opening political, cultural, and social spaces for previously marginalized groups, particularly for indigenous peoples. Between the decades of 2000 and 2020, several key policies were made to recognize indigenous groups, such as the UN Declaration of Indigenous Rights, also the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and in the case of Taiwan, the Council of Indigenous Peoples in 1996 was created to respond to the needs of indigenous peoples. And as activist and scholar Yolan Xie points out, the movement led to the establishment of the Indigenous Peoples Basic Act in 2005, which lays out key indigenous rights. For the cultural context, according to MOFA, currently the population of Taiwan is divided into 3 major ethnic categories, in which indigenous peoples account for 2.5%, and there are 16 officially recognized groups. However, as indigenous scholar Yolancie points out, there are groups that are still struggling for recognition, as her own group Siraya and other Pimpu indigenous groups. And there is a rise of a new Taiwanese identity that has received growing academic attention. However, there is still limited research on whether does it include them and how this evolving identity affects them politically, socially, and culturally. So for the literature review, existing studies on Taiwan cinema have explored indigenous representation identity through a post-colonial lens. And to understand how they were represented in films, I look at the work of, for example, Professor Lee Do-Ming, who explores early documentary portrayals of indigenous peoples during both Japanese and Kuomintang colonial periods, where they are portrayed as primitive and their purpose was to civilize them. Afterwards, in the case of the Kuomintang, the purpose was basically erase the culture. Professor Cho Wei-Fen, in her article, analyzes the film Sedic Veil and the broader context of indigenous identity in Taiwanese cinema. And others like Professor Karin Friedman, who is based in Hualien, also explored the representation of both indigenous and non-indigenous directors through processes of Japanization and Sinicization. But after going through the literature review, I realized that there was non-existent literature in Spanish regarding this topic, and that there is very little on the topic of indigenous cinema in the contemporary era, especially since 2010, which is the last decade where more films, or they started to produce feature films. And something that has been overlooked in indigenous cinema is also women voices. In the case of Taiwan, there is almost non-existent literature on it, particularly regarding of the cinema of Laja Mibo, who is the first woman indigenous filmmaker in Taiwan. So for the theoretical framework, to analyze these issues, I originally took a post-colonial approach, and I drew on Stuart Holt's ideas around identity and representation in media, especially in his book Questions of Cultural Identity, where he describes the relationship between culture and identity in the context of globalization, approaching to the idea of cinema as a place of encounter. And I also drew on the third cinema of Latin America, but I recently looked into the concept of fourth cinema, which is coined by the Maori filmmaker Barry Barclay in 2003. And he pointed out that first, second, and third cinema are all cinemas of the modern nation state. So from the indigenous place of standing, these are all invader cinemas. So there would be a fourth cinema, which offers alternatives to these three models. He refers to the conceptual theory of interiority, which are philosophical elements, and exteriority, which are, for example, rituals, language, use of elders, attitudes to land, and the presence of children, as it is done in Laja Mibo cinema, in her films. And these two concepts are intertwined, and interiority is achieved when what is seen on the screen sounds true to those who are depicted in the story. And I also incorporated a decolonial approach to the lens of Maori professor Linda Tuhiwai-Smith. She has become a key figure in decolonial methodologies that revises colonial power structures. So it would be a method made for indigenous to be applied by indigenous and non-indigenous peoples. And I took a feminist approach and analyzed the work of Laja Mibo through her feature films, where she portrays indigenous issues through a contemporary approach. And I incorporated a comparison with a key figure in indigenous cinema at an international level, Mera Tamita, because she became the first Maori indigenous woman to write and direct a fiction feature film called Maori in 1988, in which Maori ancestral knowledge and Maori struggles are portrayed from an indigenous perspective. So here there is a Pacific connection. For the research method, I use a qualitative approach using documentary and content analysis methods combined with a semi-structured interview. I made a chronological analysis across 3 historical periods, from Japanese colonization to democracy, to contextualize indigenous cinema in Taiwan. So I compile a list from these periods, and I focus on fields from 2010 onwards. And so basically on the democratic transition period, because we can say that here there is a shift towards cultural revitalization. So for the gender perspective, women perspective has been overlooked in indigenous cinema in Taiwan, and no research has been done that focuses on women directors. So I primarily focus on the feature film Gaga, directed by Laja Mibo, who won the Best Director Award at the Golden Horse Awards in 2022 for this film. Mibo herself describes her films as part of her journey to reconnect with her cultural identity after living away from her community for 30 years. And we can see that reflected in her feature films. Also, in what I call her contemporary indigenous trilogy, she approaches the modern indigenous life with realism and authenticity. And a key element is that it is done from a youth perspective with an emphasis in intergenerational change. A key element is that the films functions around the ancestral law Gaga, by which Atayal people abide and carries ancestral knowledge. And what I found very interesting is how indigenous and Catholic beliefs coexist in Atayal communities, reflecting ongoing effects of past colonization. But however, it is also critical on how traditions are being forgotten or replaced in the communities by external traditions and need to be taught to younger generations so they don't disappear. And why this matter? Because Mibo herself says her films are made to be relatable to everyone, not just indigenous viewers. So this means that is bridging cultural understanding through shared human experiences. So it isn't only preservation of indigenous traditions by indigenous and for indigenous, but also a way to reach non-indigenous audiences. So we can say that, as Linda Tuhiwai points out, it is a way to educate colonizers. A comparison between Laja Mibo and Meratamita shows a shared understanding of the importance of feature films for indigenous storytelling. As Mita emphasized, film as a continuation of oral tradition and argue for the need to move from documentary to drama in order to expand how indigenous stories are told. And similarly, Mibu's work highlights how feature films can increase visibility and reach wider audiences. And together they demonstrate that feature filmmaking is a key step in bringing indigenous stories to both national and global audiences. To support the analysis, I conducted 8 semi-structured interviews with participants from diverse backgrounds and ethnicities. The interviews focus on films, series, and documentaries from 2010, including Sekalu, Gaga, Sedic Bale, and these were to gather insights on relevant issues. I'm not sure if you know about these films or series, so it would be great to know. And so for the key findings of these interviews, I grouped them in 3. So for the first one, most participants were aware of indigenous issues, though more from political discussions than from film, as already my colleagues mentioned before, that is usually from political issues with China and so on. Many noted a lack of indigenous representation in cinema. Some had trouble recognizing film titles unless they were in Mandarin. For example, Gaga or the film Lokalaki, which in English is Hanging Their Kids, in Chinese is Zijiao Zhanta. And even a struggle with indigenous names. The name of the director herself, if I mention her name, Chen, people may recognize her, but if I say La Jamibo, nobody knows. And regarding this matter, a Taiwanese educator, Liu Yu's Kulibu, mentioned that indigenous names are often seen as strange or hard to pronounce, which leads to discrimination and creates barriers, especially in administration matters. For the visibility of indigenous cinema since 2010, all participants agreed that the indigenous groups remain underrepresented in film, despite a rise in indigenous productions since this date, and that although these films often focus on indigenous struggles and identity, still don't receive the visibility or recognition they deserve. And for the last one, indigenous identity and government support, one participant highlighted the past massacres and repression of indigenous peoples by Han settlers, but also mentioned that since Taiwan's democratization, there has been growing support and pride in indigenous communities. A key moment was President Tsai's 2016, which they mentioned, the public apology that she made to indigenous peoples, and like an act of historic reconciliation. And government and institutional support have been crucial for cultural recognition in recent years, although there is still a lot to be done. And to conclude, using a decolonial lens, this study showed that indigenous film is not just a form of cultural resistance, but a space for self-representation and cultural revitalization. The research highlights that while recent productions have helped increase visibility, there are still challenges, and self-representation remains essential, and the gap between how communities are portrayed on a screen and their real-life experiences shows a disconnect between public perception and lived reality. The production is a key element. As indigenous filmmaker Salon Isahabud points out, true improvement in the media landscape still requires them to become the authors themselves, and the number of indigenous director feature films, around 30 to 50 in New Zealand and fewer than 10 in Taiwan, shows how important feature films are for cultural expression and recognition. They allow for longer storytelling and gain more visibility. In this context, Merata Mita's work is part of an already established indigenous film tradition, but La Jamibu's films represent the early stages of building one in Taiwan. And this will be the end of the presentation. And now I can try to play a couple of clips, if this works, from the film Gaga. Thank you. So, I'm not sure if I can, yeah. Yes, I hope that there are no ads, because this has lots of ads.
One second, Anna.
Yes.
I don't know if it's still sharing, if you're still sharing something at the end with your laptop or no.
Oh, yeah. So you cannot see the
No. That's why, because Heidi was gonna share also her presentation right after that, and we had a little bit of overlap.
Okay. That's fine then. It's fine. We can skip it.
Maybe you can leave the link in the chat box, and people can watch it if they like, if it's okay for you.
Will do. So I'm not sharing my screen now, right?
No. It was That's why, because I seen that you were froze a little bit, so I thought that there might be some technical issues. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was really interesting for me also to listen for the first time in such a depth description, especially because I think that in Spain, but in general in Hispanic studies, there is an evident lack of indigenous studies regarding Taiwan, also regarding I think the Pacific area in general, no Austronesian heritage. So it's very interesting to see not only the indigenous art and culture be treated as something that happened in the past as an artifact, but something present and existing nowadays in contemporary art as well. So it's really interesting. I hope we can talk more at the end of the next presentation as well. I can see that we have already a question for you. So we can go forward to the next joint talk, because we will have two people presenting kind of together, because I think they share a lot. One of them, and the first one, will be Heidi Chen. She's the Operation Director at Bamboo Culture International, which is the successor organization of Bamboo Cartoon Studio, very famous independent art space in Taiwan, based in Zhuwei, which organized a lot of social engaged art projects in Taiwan during the last decades, and sadly partially stopped its activity, and now Bamboo Cartoon International is trying to recover the legacy of their founder, Margaret Chiao, and try to spread and archive the product of these social engaged art projects based in Zhuwei. So I would like to invite Heidi to share a screen, and please also share the presentation whenever she is ready. Thank you very much. We can see the presentation, Heidi, but now I cannot see you anymore or listen to you anymore. I think your microphone is still mute.
It works now? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Roberto, for inviting me to join this symposium. And today I will quickly introduce about the archiving as institutional closure, the afterlife action of Bamboo Curtain Studio. And this action is from 2022 to 2026. So this year is the last year of our actions. Okay, and I'd like to begin my presentation with a question. Okay. When an institution closes, where does its knowledge go? Okay. It is not a rhetorical question. It is a question that has shaped our works for the past 4 years. And it is the question I want to use to think about together today. We tend to assume that when an institution closes, it simply stopped. The doors shut down and the programs end. What remains become memories, scattered, informal, slowly forgotten. But what if closure could be practically deliberately? What if an institution's ending were not just something that happens, but something that could be authored? Today's presentation is not about preservation, not only about that. It is about closure itself. What does it mean to end an institution honestly, with method and with intention? The afterlife action is Bamboo Curtain Studio's answer to that question. It is our deliberate practice of completing our own institutional end. Okay, let me first place this as geographically. The current studio was located here at the intersection where Taipei meets New Taipei City, where the city meets the river, where the mountains meet the water. This is not just a geographic description, it is a special condition of institution itself. The current studio, BCS, was always at the edge of the city, of the art world, of the mainstream cultural policy. And if we zoom in more, we can see here is a Zhuwei area. You can see BCS on the left edge of the frame, and right next is the wetland and the Danshui River. The Pontry Creek runs through the community, and this creek that would later become become central to BCS most significant long-term project. Here is Pontry Creek. Okay. And what kind of place was BCS? Here I list some hashtags from the inside. We founded in 1995 space reactivation, alternative space, artist village, non-profit organization. We are also in climate action space. One founder, smaller staff, and the cat and dog, many artists, plants, and the insect. This matter because it tells you about the textures of this place, not just its programs, but its living quality. This texture is precisely what is hardest to archive. Originally, this was an abandoned poultry research chicken farm. The founders leased it and transformed it into an experimental base of the artist's creation, opening it not only as a personal studio, but also as an exhibition space for emerging artists. It attracted artists who rejected the white cube and those who the white cube rejected. The person behind this was Margaret Xu, our founder. She born in Hong Kong in 1946, settled in Taiwan in 1976. She lived in Taiwan for more than 40 years. She was many things at once: artist, advocator, art collector, incubator, cultural workers, curator, and green art worker. She passed away in Singapore on August 30. Yeah, BCS was founded. BCS was Taiwan's first registered art service organization. It was also Taiwan's first independently operated non-profit international art village. And here you can see some, and she at the first this chicken farm just her studio, but after when she observed more and more artists they want to have exhibition space, she opened it and become an exhibition space. And her philosophy was so simple yet deeply inclusive. She told every artist who came to BCS, as long as you don't burn the place down and can restore the space, you can do whatever what you want. You could even build an entire gate out of bread and let it the ants coming. Yeah, naturally. And here is some in the past bamboo current studios focus and lifestyle. We are care about the share, connect, co-create, and we do the global, means local action and the global connection. And in our 25th anniversary, we submit some 5 core commitments. Yeah, as the slide. And in the past 25 years, now it's 30 years, many events happen in here. Yeah, so we used to have vivid days here, but as time went by, what was once the highest roof here, people can sit down on it and see the Guanyin Mountain, was dwarfed by urban expansion. Over 25 years, the surrounding landscape transformed. Finally, with the construction of the Danbei Road, it became clear that this place could no longer serve as a suitable space for artist residency and creative work. So in 2020, due to the various factors, Margaret, our founder, decided to close Bamboo Curtain Studio after 25 years operation. And 2 months later, we immediately launched the first phase of the archiving organization project. The closure and archiving were initiated together from the very start. We don't think it was a failure when we decide to close it. It is a decision made with clarity and made in time. And let me show about the Danbei Road construction. Here you can see on the slide, this spot is Bamboo Curtain Studio, and the construction is passed by very closely. So you can see this Google map. When we close down the BCS, here still has a green line. But after, the timeline was missed. But yeah, we can see the construction road was constructed. Yeah, so here is the original site. Yes, so the physical transformation of the place is complete. What remains is what we choose to preserve. And in June of 2024, our team also officially moved away from Zhuwei. Yeah, here you can see it's in our space. Yeah, so after that, it also start our we also start the afterlife actions, and in this case, archiving is also an enactment of the founder's wish. Preservation is also an act of giving. What was private becomes public. What belongs to one institution now belongs to everyone. Yeah, because our founder, Margaret, she willing to open those 25 years documents become public goods. So in this interview, she spoke about the values of BCS historical record. She spoke about the importance of making them publicly accessible. This became her mandate to us. At the same time, BCS team was preparing for the closing forum titled Venturing Beyond the Terrain, the Passion of the Endless Creativity. This title reflects BCS long-standing peripheral character, a strategic position at the margin, used to speak toward the center. But however, in that August 2021, we received the news that none of us had prepared for. Margaret had passed away in Singapore, and her passing created the uncertainty about the archives. In the weeks that followed, we formed an advisory group. And around the same time, a lawyer active in the artist and the culture community, she contacted us and say she willing to help us. She will help us with the copyright and licensing dimensions of the archive. After her passing, Bamboo Culture International was reorganized, that by original BCS team members and supported by her family. These two institutions share a common origin, but they remain distinct in titles. The family agreed to support the project for a defined period, is 2022 to 2026. So BCS closed its physical doors at the end of 2021. Before the closing, the team organized. We organized a final forum and an open day. The final open day. Artists who had worked with BCS across these years came back and reflect together, say goodbye to the space. So you can see people. It is our long-term artists, Sensen Theater. They dance around the fire and invite everybody dance with them. Because Margaret, she left a clear wish. She wants our archives can be public accessible. So it is the context of the afterlife action, and it is where our central argument begins. So here we want to talk about archiving is a preservation, and through preservation and active completion of institutional closure, preservation becomes the vehicle of the closure. Here, I want to show you some photos in different kind of stage. We are trying at the beginning of the actions, we are trying to collecting different kind of documents from every corner from the studio, and we noticed that every decision we make matters. What kind of thing do we keep? How do we describe it, and who can access it? Each choice determines how BCS will be understood in the future. We are not simply recording, we are authoring. So how did this archiving process actually work, and what tensions could not be avoided? Here I want to show you that at the first, the members of the current studio only know very small part of the archive. So the first question we faced was this: where are the boundaries of BCS as an archival subject? And we found that an institution is not simply its documents. It is relationships, atmospheres, and also very is accumulate decisions, and the thing that happens in this space that were never written down. Although BCS and BCI has the same origin, both of the organization are founded by Margaret Xu, but they are legally separate entities. So we need to separate what belong to BCS, what belong to BCI, and what belong to Margaret Xu personally. Yeah, so we understood that BCI or BCS is not equal to the documents, and we need to start to thinking about what can be preserved through archiving and what cannot, because the archive is not the institution. You can see here those pictures around the archiving, like Guanyin Mountain, Lila Plants, or the specific artwork, or the relationship with local community, and the dog and cat, and our logos. These were what the institution actually was. This was what receives documentation. And this diagram captures the organizational reality we face. As insider, we hold the context that not external researchers could reconstruct. We know what certain projects were cancelled, and we know how the space felt during different periods of its life. And the other side, some of ongoing programs like Puntry Creek, which had already extended beyond BCS on institutional life. So actually, archive not only in the institutions, but also beyond of it, and get related to the outsiders. But at the same time, we also carry subjectivity. We do not share our perspective as a bias to be corrected. We treat it as knowledge that must be documented honestly. For the institutional record that could be processed, we use the three frameworks. The first one is methodology. It helps us to conserving the archives, cataloging, and reorganizing, and also the most important that to digitalizing the materials. And the law, it can be clarified in heritage, and also yeah. Okay, and the third part is about archival studies. Here I will show some case. This is our lawyer help us to check about the rights. And also, and this one is about the how we use the fonts to reorganize our archive. But something this framework cannot be reached, like what I mentioned, site-specific work and community life. Yeah, those of things is hard to documentation. Yeah, some of documents words are ruined just by ends. Yeah. So based on this, we should also be honest that BCS never had a consistent archiving process. Data was loose in transitions. Early material will poorly stored, and what we are doing now is partly rescue work and partly the acknowledgement that something are already gone. We think that we understand that the absence, it is is itself a form of evidence. So for the conventional archiving cannot capture, we explore another form of documentation. Like this, we're trying to record some artists in residency use video. It produced by the these films captures the final group of long-term residents and project-sponsored artists, documenting their process of absorb inspiration, developing their perceptions, and creating new work. Also, we held the workshop to discuss with the communities to develop how to reuse those documents. And we systematically scan and organize the physical papers archives. So we gathered 114 of documents. Now we are trying to make it be accessible in digital form. On the practical side, we also digitalized the VHS tape collection. So some of tapes are spanning from 1886 to early 2000s, documenting performance, exhibition, and also external forums. We also collaborate with some partners to use VR scanning to preserve the physical experience of the site, but it has limited that it only can scan the outside of the building, not the inside. But it is one of way to preserve about the space, not just documents. And because we have so many different kinds of documents, so after discussion, we choose Pontry Creek as our first step test case because it was the smallest database and dataset. Working in the and as insider, we knew this project began in 209, not in 2011. And most of the outside external researchers, they think it starts from 2011, but actually we can because we can see on the see our archive, note and understand that actually the real start time. Furthermore, working on the Pontry Creek archives also brought a realization. We were dealing with the 3 different types of the archiving entirely. And Pontry Creek is an art action. And BCS and the BCI are the institution, and Margaret Shu's archive is an individual. Each needed a different logic. And here I will show you the fonts what we made. The fonts of the Pontry Creek has 4 phases. The first one is the early action and also the art action period, and this period was known by our external researchers, but the Bamboo Current Studio lead and also the community lead phase are more less discussion, but we want to state that the last phase is very significant because the archive does not end with the institution, and because many people worry about the Country Creek art action be finished with Bamboo Curtain Studio in 2021. But we are glad to see that our community-led work is continue to now. So yeah. And here is the font of BCS, and this font structure was built collaboratively. We invite senior administrators who had worked across different periods of BCS. Each contribute. We invite them come back to discuss with us. So we map out the basic structure together and refine it again in existing materials. Yeah. So yeah, because we start from the Country Creek as the first step, and second we use the method to the BCS and the Margarets. So this slide shows the font structure of Bamboo Curtain Studio itself. We have two sub fonts, administration and the programs, each with his own series and sub series. Yeah, here has the English version. Yeah, and here you can see some documents. It belong to the different kind of series. We have a lot of international discussions documents, but also in Mandarins. For Margaret, we are organized by not by project or but by her identity, like artist and or cultural worker, art collector, yeah, something like that. Because some of her close friends rarely knew that about her identity as a collector, so we're trying to reorganize her archive by her identity. We hope that this kind of font can make visible what her life content. Yeah. And here I will show you some documents from Margaret's. Yeah, like some newspapers and letters with the governments, something like that. But actually, not every document is so easily to understand, because some of documents is hard to judge that what kind of identity she participants. For example, we can simply see the documents, but we are hardly to understand what kind of way for her to participate this kind of meeting. Even so, much remains beyond reach. In January 2024, our BCS signboard were officially taken down. The physical markers of BCS in Zhuwei are gone, and yet BCS continue to enter history through other passes. Here I will show you. BCS had been recognized as a female cultural landmark in Danshui, part of the local cultural geography of the region. In region it inhabited for 26 years. Yeah, you can see the poster and also the website. And interesting that on the slides right side, something unexpected, that Pikmin Bloom, a Nintendo mobile games, has marked BCS as a landmark in its map. The buildings may be gone, but its location in the community is cultural geography is now part of the record in ways we never anticipated. So to recall the title of the symposium, the periphery is not only a geography location, it is a strategical position of the advocacy. In the work of self-archiving, it is the transitional zone where private institutional asset become cultural public goods. Afterlife action operates precisely within the this transitional zone, which brings us back to the where we began, and where when an institution closes, where does its knowledge go? With afterlife action, we choose to preserve it, and through preservation to complete it. We are not continue BCS, we are trying to completing it honestly within a defined window of time. The case of BCS suggests that the end of the peripheral institution need not be a silent disappearance. It can be an active methodological act of writing oneself into history. We leave you with one question. What does it mean to end well? For BCS, this is our answer. For another institution at the emergence, perhaps it can be a model. Thank you all for your time and attention today. I will now be very happy to hear your thoughts and answer any question you might have. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Heidi. Super interesting, super interesting. Maybe we will go a little bit faster since we're a little bit late based on our program, but I hope we're gonna have the occasion to discuss more about this in the Q&A session, because alongside with Heidi, I would like to invite to share also her presentation, Sang Tzuman from Asia Art Archive. I'm sure you all know this very famous organization in Asia dedicated to documenting and preserving histories of contemporary art in the whole continent. Since 2022, I'm sure most of you know that also there is a Taipei office focused on expanding the research into the practice of Taiwan independent art spaces like Bamboo Curtain Studio. So that's why also Tzuman has been invited right after Heidi to share her view from the archival, and the archival practice and what the Taipei office is doing right now. So thank you very much, Tzuman, for being here with us. I think you're still mute, your microphone.
Okay, just a sec. Can you hear me now? Can you hear my sound? Oh yeah, I suppose you can hear me, right? Yeah. So thanks for the invitation, and thanks for Heidi's sharing about Bamboo Curtain Studio. So full screen. So I'm the researcher from Asia Art Archive Taipei office, and for those who haven't heard about AAA, it's a nonprofit organization founded in 2000 in Hong Kong, and our mission is to enhance public accessibility to the understanding of Asians' recent art history. And I think following Heidi's presentation, it would be interesting for me to share my point of view outside from Bamboo Curtain Studio. And so I'll be briefing our research directions and content of daily works in Taiwan, and also including how we collaborate with Heidi in Bamboo Curtain Studio's archiving work. So I will quickly brief about AAA. So we have, the organization is headquartered in Hong Kong and operates 2 subsidiaries in New Delhi and New York in India and USA. Among these 3 offices, the physical libraries are maintained at each of the respective workstations. And as you can see, the yellow pin, Taipei being one of them, it's across this AA's research and archival network. We are here operating by receiving subsidies from our public sector, it means Ministry of Culture in Taiwan. And other yellow pins will be sometimes a studio, a working group, and sometimes just one researcher conducting a nomadic approach within their local, building their local archives. And this is just to show initially, actually AAA established a traditional library comprising books and publications, but because with the rapid evolution of recent Asian art, there is an urgent need to preserve the substantial volumes of unpublished primary source materials. So the digitization of our collections has facilitated and the migration to online platforms. And this has become one of our main goals also here in Taipei office. And we hope this transformation can kind of effectively promote research and foster the development of knowledge network and thereby revitalizing our collections. And in this pie chart, you can see what we have here in the Taiwan holdings. It's in total of like around 13,000 of Taiwan-related holdings within our entire archive. And here, as you can see, I want to point out this our gender distribution in this demographic data on our artists in Taiwan. We are trying to actually building a little bit more of our female founders or artists collections, since this is relatively, they are still relatively in a smaller portion among our collections. And so AAA aims to conduct regional fieldworks throughout entire Asia, and sometimes we concentrating on specific themes. So independent art space have long been a focal point of our research interests, and as the independent art space symbolize social changes and serve as vital channels for artists to articulate their social concerns. And while like biennales frequently emerge as a central topic in discussion of Asian art history, I think independent art space function as a physical hubs or field that connects various art activities. So it's worth expanding these collections throughout our research network. And we also have been collecting independent art space collections in Vietnam, South Korea, or Indonesia, or other places. But in Taiwan, across, it's interesting to compare that, do a comparative studies that across different regions in Asia, it can be observed that independent art space have emerged and expanded in response to political liberations. And I guess this is probably connected to our second panel's topic, this new non-peripheries point of view, as Taiwan has often been positioned on the periphery of the world, and independent art space also emerge as subcultures within exhibition spaces themselves. So just a context, like following the lifting of the martial law in '87 in Taiwan, many young artists have drew on their do-it-by-yourself ethos of '70s from the West to establish self-organized space outside of museums and commercial galleries. And our archive, so our collection or archiving collection prioritize independent art space from the '80s to 2000, means post-martial law to millennium. This is how we define our time frame and our focus. So within this time frame, the priority is also especially given to space according to the urgency of documentation. So for example, in case of where the founder has passed away, such as Bamboo Curtain Studio. And also in here, I'd like to just discuss real quick about the terminology. So in Taiwan, the term alternative space, which means 替代空间 in Mandarin, was initially used to describe the first wave of art space that emerged following the lifting of martial law in '87. But following discussion have also explored the notion of post-alternative spaces in the years following the millennium. But however, I believe Heidi would also prefer that alternative space can also be translated in Mandarin as 另类空间, which does not carry the connotation of replacing something. And some operators of these spaces even argue that this concept of replacing something, like 替代空间, does not accurately represent their initial aim. And they would actually prefer the designation of artist-run space. So ultimately, we has opted to adopt the term like independent art space, just to research this phenomenon more intuitively and more neutrally. And so you can see here, prior to the first phase, kicking off from the year of 2022, we have already completed several independent archive collections related with Taiwanese independent art space. You can see all these, such as VT Art Salon, Waterfield Studio, and so on. But during the first phase, while we get funded from the Ministry of Culture, 6 archival collections have been established. So it's Space 2, Up Art Gallery Corners, Culture, 新乐园 Art Space, 新兵 Pier, and Penthouse Studio. And we are now continue expanding these collections of independent art space in Taiwan. And in this second phase, we will extending from the previous collections, we target 6 more alternative spaces, and Bamboo Studio being one of the target in this phase. And I will go through our normal archival workflow, just in the case under the case study of our IST, which means Independent Art Space of Taiwan Archives. So at the first and the second step, it's scoping, fieldwork, interviews, acquisition, and contracting. And at this step, we are trying to identify urgent, relevant topics, evaluating donated collections. And then we move on to cleaning, conservation, cataloging, and digitization. And in this step, we are trying to ensure digitized materials meet technical standards. Following with ingestion into database backend and development of metadata. So make sure the annotation and uploading footnotes to prepare online display page and so on. And after all these red steps conclude, we will be filing and return the materials to the donors. And last but not least, the black part is the public access. So we also, after the digitization and the entire archive is finished, we also trying to make some public programs, exhibitions, talks, workshops, symposia as such, and basically trying to promote our archival outreach. And in this, this is just to show from day to day, from what the aforementioned steps, some of the examples. So on the top left corner, this is the inventory list we made after scoping and fieldwork and interviews. And this is an example of the photo after we visit the artist studio, and we will be writing acquisition report and deciding what kind of physical or digital materials we are bringing back to our office for the next step, cleaning, conservation, and cataloging. And after all this is done, we will do digitization and review for uploading to our backend system. And this is our example, just a screenshot for our backend system called QI. And we use this to write our annotation and metadata for uploading to our website in the front end. And if you have time, you can go through our online database. The screenshot is like this, and you can search by access level, collection type, format, and the years. And you can type in here what you're trying to search, just the name. And the important thing is our website is constructed in both Mandarin and English, just to make sure it's accessible for international scholars and researchers. So all of the independent art space projects from the first phase, it's already online, all the aforementioned 6 art spaces. So you can see here, there are some programs along with these collections being launched online. And since we are now actually stationed in C-Lab in Taipei, C-Lab is collaborating with AA Taipei, so most of our public programs will be also on C-Lab's website. So feel free to have a look. And apart from the previous mentioned files, we also do interviews and video recordings. So we believe that interviewing founders, key members, and participating artists and curators of the art space, it's drawing on their individual experiences and narratives. So it can fill in gaps in existing documents. Since 97% from our collections or files at the moment are paper, the printed source, because it's from the 80s, right? So this is just a screenshot of an example. This is one, Catherine Lee. She is the art administrators who were involved in earlier stage of Bamboo Curtain Studios development prior to Heidi's appointment. And also Heidi was here. And if you are interested, you can also go on our website to check out the oral history, the video interviews, and hoping we can add or enabling cross-references informations between these resources. And my last slide I will share, so at kind of a conclusion. So this is not the genealogy, but probably like a mapping for all the 6+4 independent art spaces we were working and we are going to work with. So black ones being the first phase 6 art spaces, and the blue one being the current ongoing projects. And I want to highlight that this is just to show this kind of map that it's interesting to see from the earliest independent art spaces like Soka in the 86 and their relationship between other spaces. You can actually tell, or once you dive down, you can actually research that the members are actually floating between these art spaces. So for example, Margaret Chu, the founder of Bamboo Curtain Studio, was actually a student in Soka, and she also was working with IT Park. Then together with a member in Space 2, they founded Bamboo Curtain Studio in 1995. So you can see different networking or connections among these spaces. And I also want to highlight that the modes of operation varied among these 10 spaces. So some were founded by multiple individuals, while others had a single founder, like Dopic Art Cafe. So additionally, some spaces were integrated with commercial events, activities, where others were relying on government grants. And it is helpful to compare how these spaces functioned in different regions in Taiwan during the 80s till millenniums. And I think the Bamboo Curtain Studio is very unique within our ongoing 10 collections, because this is the only independent art space whose founder has passed away, and which is now operated under BCI, as we just heard from Heidi's presentation. And so the posthumous inventory of the founder's archive is it's very, very difficult, and it takes a lot of resources. And this is the only art spaces we actually have we actually collaborate with, and they have their own lawyers or inventory to make the inventory list for us to continue the archives. And I can go on talk about a little bit more on the practical experiences while we were working on Bamboo Curtain Studio. But I think for now, I would like to pause here and leave the space for the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Very much, Suman. Oh, don't worry, Lucky. Thank you also for the message. Thank you very much for the presentation, Suman. It was very, very interesting, and I'm sure that especially maybe Anna can confirm that Asia Art Archive is such an important resource for international scholars like us, like me and her, especially for that English feature, that help us to a little bit limitate that the Mandarin barrier that we can face sometimes. And I think it's also very interesting what you carrying on in Asia Art Archive in Taipei, because we see the independent art spaces in Taiwan are the places where contemporary art in Taiwan start to develop, and to create an aesthetic that then popularized in the 90s, in the new century. And I think it's very important to study this independent art space for the developing of contemporary art in Taiwan, and also in the case of English literature, going beyond the most famous one, like Apartment 2, or like Soka or E.T. Park, and looking for more independent art spaces that shaped the contemporary art in Taiwan in the newest era. So thank you very much for both of you, Heidi and Suman. And I think the 4 presentation of this second panel, they're very interesting, and they share something in common, which is the importance of the liminality of the margin. Art practices, the look that feels like they're produced in the margin by communities situated in the margin of discourse, in the margin of the center, but actually they're reclaiming their own space in the history and the narrative of Taiwan. So something that I would like to ask in general is also if you want to talk about this idea of community that I think that put together all the presentation, from Lucky talking about food, gastronomy, historical memory, going through Anna talking about indigenous community. The idea of the concept of community is very important in any indigenous community in Taiwan. And then also going through, for example, Bamboo Cartoon Studio, where the community in Juwei was very important piece of the project. And I feel that in the case of Asia Art Archive also, when you face in different independent art space, you've seen that there was a participation by the community. So I don't know if you want to add something about the importance of the concept of community for contemporary art in Taiwan, and then maybe then we can go over some few questions and close the event. I don't know if anyone wants to share something first. Okay, maybe I can ask something to specific the 3 of you, because I have a couple of questions that I would like to ask you. For example, Anna, especially, I would like to ask her something about a more international researcher perspective, which is the problem of the language barrier. Because I've been focused lately also on indigenous contemporary art, and talking with researchers based in Taiwan, they told me that one of the main struggle that you can face is the problem of the language, that it goes beyond just the Mandarin, but also the languages of the different indigenous community in Taiwan, and the importance the language has for this community. So I would like to ask Anna if, from the perspective of the methodology, how she can go beyond this obstacle and how to mitigate it a little bit.
Sure, thank you. Well, I guess that when I started my research, because I already know something about it, because I was previously interested, so I could maybe gather more information, and from people, scholars that are actually, a couple of them are indigenous, one I knew before, and so they could tell me in English more insights. But yeah, definitely the language is really important, and for us it is a barrier. And actually, if you want to like, for example, there are communities that I've been told that they, for example, they speak Japanese from the Japanese because they grew up in the Japanese era, so they don't speak Mandarin and they speak only their indigenous languages or Japanese, but they cannot communicate further with in other language. So you always need a translator, let's say, to get those insights. So I think it's really important that now younger generations, if they keep on studying these languages from their community, so they can share with us, and then we are able to understand more deeply how or what, or at least have like a sense of what it is being indigenous or their indigenous identity, so we can learn more from them.
I totally agree. I think it's a very difficult balance to find when we approach to this kind of topic, especially when it's not part of our culture. It's some struggle that I also have sometimes, not only the language, but how to speak, how to write about certain cultural and art practices and let the voices speak for themselves. So I think it's something that we learn how to do it step by step in this long journey, as it is the research.
I guess that's why I always try to look for, now I try to look for research from indigenous scholars themselves, which was difficult before, but when I started my research, I always thought, but why is it always Western scholars who are teaching us what this means or how to approach this concept or this theory? So I wanted to go further.
Yes, I think we are on the same page on this. same experience, bro, similar experience in researching. And I also have a question for Heidi that is related to this practical of archiving. I know by firsthand, as I had the chance, and also have been very lucky to see the archive by myself during my latest visit in Taiwan, that it requires a lot of work regarding the Plum Tree Creek Festival, a lot of documents, and I think you did a great job, alongside with Asia Art Archive. And I think my question is also related to something that we already talked in the past, that is the idea to activate also the archive. I would like to ask you if once the archive will be done regarding Plum Tree Creek Festival, do you plan by Bamboo Curtain International to activate this archive in some way, either with an exhibition, workshop, or events in which the Juwei community can be included again, maybe, and remember this project in which they participated years ago and they still think about it now?
Maybe I can share about it from different kinds of dimension. The first one is about the Bamboo Curtains archive. Recently, we will have a exhibition in Treasure Hill. We collaborate with universities professor, and he will lead two students to do some research for the archive, and using something about it, and made a exhibition in the Treasure Hill Art Village. So I think it is a good way that our external researcher, they notice those archive it has some value, and also the researcher lead her younger generations students to study about the archive. So for those younger generations, they never touched about the documents in the early age. So they think it's very interesting that because the archive shown another kind of way to negotiate with the government, and also to build up a international collaborate network. So also in the early age of the Taiwan cultural policy, because in early times our government is not didn't have enough awareness about the how to say cultural works, the need of the cultural works. And Margaret Xu is a very key person to negotiate and also to do the conservation with the government, to telling what is the need of the cultural workers. Yeah, so I think it is a good way to make the use the archive as a bridge to make a different kind of generations researcher can understand about that. So this is the first dimension. And the second one is about the Palm Tree Creek. As I mentioned in the presentation, the Palm Tree Creek action is still working. And recently, I understand that I got a news that Palm Tree Creek is back to Zhuwei school, elementary school again. I think it's very interesting that although Bam Current Studio was closed, but many community people, they are care about the Palm Tree Creek. They do the monthly event along the street, and also they are trying to use artworks way. They use art way to lead those elementary school students to understand or more about the Palm Tree Creek again. Yeah, so after almost 15 years later, Palm Tree Creek came back to the elementary school again, which is one of the school we had collaborate with. I think it's very interesting and glad to see it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to hear this, because I remember in our last chat together, you told me that the experience of Palm Tree Creek Festival was very inside the heart of the people in Zhuwei. And I remember you mentioning me that there have been more activities by the community is still working together, even though Bamboo Cartoon Studio closed in 2021. So listening to this is really, it's refreshing, and it's very nice thinking about the impact that these art practices can have in local communities as well. And a little bit also on the same page to your question, also I would like to ask something to Man related to the work of Asia Art Archive in Taipei, but also globally in East Asia, because I can see that in Taipei you're doing very intensive work regarding all the independent art spaces. It's a lot of material for sure. It's very important, very interesting. But looking at the history of Asia Art Archive also, I'm wondering if in the future the idea is to make Taipei office collaborate more in an inter-Asian discourse with the rest of the event in Asia. Because I feel that especially in the past few years, Taiwanese contemporary artists trying to detach a little bit by the Japanese or the Chinese etiquette and try to find a more inter-Asian discourse, or even pan-Pacific discourse. So it will be interesting if from Asia Art Archive also there is this intention in the future.
I think in each regions that we are trying to deep down in our roots to localize or what we can research, and independent art space being one of the interesting topic. And we are also collecting different art spaces, and it will be interesting to make a comparative studies. For example, if you know, in South Korea and Taiwan's democracy progress, it's quite similar, on kind of in a similar page. And to study the history of these backgrounds would directly related to the independent art space in South Korea and in Taiwan. So it is kind of a plan to make a broader research in different regions, and hoping in the future we can collaborate all these researches and make a kind of an outcome, whether it's a publication or a symposium. We don't know yet, but we are also trying to kind of I'm not sure if we have clear principles inside the office to kind of separate from specific regions' culture. First, as you mentioned, for example, in Japan. But for me, actually, would be interested to include Japanese independent art space in this context. It's just that we still don't have headquarters or any sort of workstations in Japan yet, and this is our goal. We're trying to expand from as much as possible across Asia. But also, sometimes I encounter people asking questions like, does Asia Art Archive need to be only stay within the geographical Asia? Because we are interested in the Asian art related events, but the margin or the border is not restricted to geographical limits. So sometimes we do research even outside of the geographical Asia, like in New York, for example, we have a headquarters there. So
yeah, also I think about the diaspora. There are many people from different countries in Asia that have been settled for generations in other countries, well, United States, for example, but even in Europe. And thinking about art collective, I think led by Taiwanese artists, that I don't think it's active anymore, or at least they don't have the space in Copenhagen. Tofu Collective, they publish contemporary art volume lately. So it's also interesting to see the voices from the diaspora around the world, and how Asia connect to the rest of the world, listening from the Asian voices especially, and not maybe filtrated by Western researchers like us. So yeah, I think it's very interesting, and I'm looking forward for that, because it will be very exciting for me to see this symposium.
Maybe a workstation in Spain or something.
That would be a dream. Well, I don't think we have as much material as to archive or to work with, but there's something also going on here. I also invite people still connected, and also I would like to thank people still connected, because I know that it's already 1:20 here in Spain, and in Taiwan I'm sure it's 7 p.m. maybe. So thank you for being still here with us. If you have any question, please leave it in the chat box. In the meantime, I would like to ask Anna, as we have in the chat box, a question related to the gender approach of your research that I think is very interesting. It is something that also I would like to ask you, because I feel that it's very important, this gender approach in your research.
Well, so when I started looking at, compiling the list of films from the 3 periods, well, of course, they were going to be predominantly male from Japanese era and Kuomintang era. But then when you look at the contemporary era, it was basically the same. And then at the same time, when I was researching about indigenous films in Taiwan, then I came across this. I saw in the news that Laha won the award for Best Director. But then you may think, okay, you remember any other directors like Hou Xiaoxian or any other Wei Tesang, like he released a movie. This Sedig Bale is well known internationally as well, but he released this movie the same year as Laha released her first feature film, but still not many people know about that. So it was like focusing on marginalized voices within already marginalized groups.
Yeah. I think it's very important. It's very important, because I feel that especially in Europe, maybe, or in the Western world, we lack like homogeneous corpus of studies regarding indigenous contemporary art voices, but especially indigenous women, And I think it's also interesting by a community in which we have many women artists. If we focus on indigenous contemporary art, we can see that, at least based on my experience, that many of the artists coming from indigenous contemporary art world in Taiwan are women, and it's very important their contribution in the indigenous contemporary art discourse. It's also something that I'm trying to research a little bit in my PhD thesis. It's a long process, but so that's why I was also very interested to know your perspective about this related to the cinema. So I don't know if there is any more question, maybe from people connected, if you're curious to know something else. Maybe we can give just a couple of seconds to write in case. Otherwise, we can thanks again the three presenters from today, and also Lucky that sadly he had to leave a little bit earlier than the finish of the event. And I'm very, very glad that you all accepted the invitation and that you were able to join us today. It was very important to me to include all of your view into this year's seminar. And I think that, and I hope that you enjoyed it, share it with us. I'm very glad that we arrived to the second year edition of this symposium. It's, as you can see, it's all self-organized by me and a couple of people in Complutense University of Madrid. It's still very independent, let's say. We don't count with a lot of funding or help. So I appreciate the effort of everyone to connect, to participate, to try to make it move a little bit more. For those who are based in Spain, they're still connected. I would like to remind you that tomorrow, 3 p.m., we're going to meet in Complutense University of Madrid in the library of the Faculty of Geography and History for the in-person session, in which we will count with 2 resident artists, Guo Peiqi and Ophelia Yang. We will follow a workshop as well, together with the people who will come. There will be a little bit of food, there will be a little bit of gifts, so please try to come and spread the word. And also we will count with the precious collaboration of the Taipei representative office here in Madrid. So I think that here we're ready to maybe to close, to finish the first day of the symposium. I would like to say thank you again to all the speakers, also those who are not connected anymore. It was very nice to see you again, especially the faces that I recently see in Taiwan, and I hope you also to see you again very, very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.